I was born on an island that only really had one rule, the kind that wasn't spoken but lived in people's posture. The way their mouths tightened, the way their eyes avoided a certain part of the sea. We were never to talk about the island across the water. It sat to the east, a half-mile off our shoreline. You couldn't miss it. You'd see it from almost anywhere on our side, past the docks, over the tree line, from the cliffs on the northern edge where the goats grazed. It was always there, sitting still, never changing. A piece of land so close you could row to it in under an hour, though no one did. I can't remember a single adult ever naming it, not even once. And if you said something about it, even by accident, someone would shut it down immediately, not angrily, just firmly, like flicking a candle out. One time when I was little, maybe 7 or 8, I pointed across the water and asked my mother if anyone lived there. She didn't scold me. She didn't say anything at all. She just took my hand and led me inside, like I'd asked where babies come from or what happens when you die. That kind of silence. Another time, I asked my grandfather if he'd ever been. He was cleaning fish out by the shed. He paused just a second too long before saying, "No," then added, "Never ask about it again." And that was that. It wasn't forbidden in the way dangerous things are forbidden. It was deeper, like the island didn't want to be spoken of, and the people here had agreed to let it be. Our island wasn't big. You could walk across it in a few hours if you didn't stop. There was the village near the western bay, with its stone paths and wood-slatted houses, and the small church where we held market on Sundays. A few scattered farms, a fishing dock, and the old watchtower from before my time that no one used anymore. It was quiet, steady, the kind of place where every door creaked the same way and you knew who Dee passed by just from the sound of their cough. The trade boat came once a week, usually just before noon. We never saw where it came from. It always arrived from the mist. It brought flour, salt, oil, iron tools. Letters sometimes, though no one in my family ever got any. It left with barrels of fish and boxes of preserved vegetables. No one ever left with it. Only the trader ever boarded it. He'd pass down the rope to whoever helped him load and unload, but no one else ever crossed the rail. We were a closed loop. We grew up knowing our boundaries. The sea, the woods, the cliffs, and beyond all of that, the other island. Always watching, always ignored. There were 5 of us who couldn't leave it alone. Me, Jonah, Sam, Eli, and Nathan. We were kids like any others. Too much energy, not enough fear. We ran barefoot through the brush, built slingshots from driftwood, dared each other to knock on the widow's door. We spent hot days pretending to be soldiers, and cold nights pretending we weren't scared of ghosts. We stole things, but nothing important. Apples, candles, once a bottle of wine we didn't even like. We were just loud, restless boys. Jonah was the biggest. Tall for his age, shoulders already starting to widen like his father's. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. Sam was the quickest, always first to climb something, first to run, first to joke about things that made the rest of us squirm. Eli was quiet and careful, and always the one who asked, "What if?" before we did something dumb. Nathan was clever, sometimes too clever. He'd make up lies so good we believed them even after he admitted they weren't as true. And then there was me. I don't know what I was in that group. I guess I was the one who remembered, the one who carried it longest. We never said it out loud, but we all watched the island, from the rocks by the southern cliff, from the upper fields when the wind cleared the trees, from the shore, when we were supposed to be fishing but spent more time staring at the horizon. We'd talk about it only when we were sure no one else was listening. "Maybe it's a ruin," Eli once said. "Like people used to live there, but something happened." Sam snorted. "What, like ghosts?" "Maybe it's where the trader comes from," I offered. "He never says." Jonah said nothing, just stared into the distance. We didn't speak of it often. And when we did, it was always with that half-serious tone kids use when they retesting how far they can push something without making it real. But over time, the idea started to settle, not in our mouths, but in our bones, like it had been waiting there all along. We didn't plan it then, but I think we all knew we would. It was Jonah who said it first. We were behind the storehouse, the 5 of us perched on a broken cart that sank slightly in the middle, chewing through whatever scraps we'd stolen from our kitchens. Salted fish, hard bread, half-rotted apples that still had enough sweetness left in them to be worth the trouble. The kind of food that tasted better because it wasn't given to us. He didn't clear his throat or build up to it. He just said, "I think we should go," like he was talking to himself. No one asked where. We all knew. That silence, the way no one looked at each other, the way we kept chewing like the words hadn't landed, that was agreement. Sam spat a seed into the dirt. Tomorrow? Jonah still didn't look up. 2 mornings, before sunup. Nathan nodded. Eli wiped his hands on his pants. I didn't say anything, but I was already picturing the tide. We met 2 mornings later, just before sunrise, in the kind of pale, still light that feels like the world hasn't started yet. The moon was still visible, hanging low in the sky like it hadn't made up its mind to leave. The dirt was damp from night air, and everything around us smelled like the ocean. Not fresh, like wind and salt. Stale, like old ropes and barnacles and the inside of a bait barrel. We didn't bring much. A couple flasks of water, a loaf of bread wrapped in a cloth, some rope, a pocket knife none of us could use right. Eli brought his father's compass. The face was cracked, and the needle had a habit of drifting even when you held it steady. But he brought it anyway. Sam brought a hammer for some reason, though he never said why. Jonah had taken the skiff from the far end of the dock where the unused boats were kept. It wasn't in good shape, but it floated. That was enough. It creaked when we pushed it into the shallows, and for a second I thought the sound might carry and wake someone. But the village above us stayed dark. No lights, no footsteps. Just the soft hiss of water and the thump of oars against the side of the hull. We climbed in. Jonah and Nathan took the oars first, setting a rhythm without speaking. The rest of us sat in silence, our backs to the shore. I didn't look back. The water was colder than I expected. Not freezing, but deep cold, like it came from underneath something. There wasn't much wind, just a faint breeze that moved in slow, irregular pulses. It brushed the surface of the sea in places. I watched the light from the sky ripple and disappear beneath the oars as we moved. As we got farther out, the shape of the island came into view, slowly, like it was pushing through fog we hadn't noticed before. I'd seen it all my life, but only from shore. Now, from the water, it felt different. Bigger, heavier. The trees formed a jagged silhouette against the sky, and the hills behind them looked like sleeping animals just starting to stir. The closer we got, the more it felt familiar. The shape of the coastline, the slope of the land. It was like rowing toward a memory, one you couldn't fully place until you were inside it. There was a moment, maybe halfway across, where I turned to look behind us and saw that our own island was already fading into mist. A low fog was moving in fast, curling over the water like smoke through grass. The beach, the houses, even the trees, gone. Just a soft, gray smear behind us. It looked farther away than it should have. "Fins," Sam said, and he said it too calmly, like he was trying not to cause a stir. We all looked. Just to the right of the boat, something slid under the surface. Long, smooth. It passed without sound. Then another and another. 4, maybe 5. Just below the waterline, circling in wide, slow arcs. I couldn't see their shapes fully, but they moved like they had purpose. "Sharks," Jonah said under his breath. "Blacktips, I think." Eli leaned forward. "How can you tell?" Jonah didn't answer. He just started rowing faster. So did Nathan. Neither of them said a word, but the skiff began to lurch forward harder with each pull. Sam reached down for the hammer in his bag and gripped it like it would make a difference. The boat started to wobble with the force of the strokes. Water splashed. The nose tilted. I tried to stay calm, but the air around me had gone thin, and every muscle in my body was bracing for something I couldn't see. The island was close now, close enough to see the rock line clearly. No dock, no paths, just broken shoreline and thick brush that came almost down to the water. A crooked tree leaned out over the water near a narrow stretch of beach, barely wide enough to stand on. It looked untouched, uninviting. Then came the hit. A soft thud, followed by a jolt that rocked the skiff, like we'd slammed into something just below the surface. "Reef!" Jonah barked. The boat tilted violently to one side, then the other. Water surged in through a crack below the center bench. Cold, fast, rising. Something heavy clattered against the boards, maybe the hammer. A second later, one of the bags split open and spilled across the bench. Bread, rope, the knife, all sliding toward the low side. "Out!" someone yelled. We didn't argue. We moved. The skiff was already sinking under us, one side dipping hard. I kicked off the bench and dove, not even sure if I was jumping or falling. Water swallowed me to the neck. The cold hit like a punch, and my breath locked up in my chest. Behind me, splashing, gasping, limbs crashing into water. I could hear it all, but didn't look back. The current fought harder than I expected. My arms were sluggish, my legs heavier than they should have been. I kicked toward shore, every breath shallow and burning. Something brushed past my foot, too fast to register, too soft to be a log. I didn't stop. The distance couldn't have been more than 30 yards, but it felt like swimming through glass, the kind that keeps pulling you down instead of letting you break through. When my fingers finally hit rock, I hauled myself forward so fast I scraped both elbows raw. I didn't care. I just wanted to be out. One by one, the others crashed onto the beach behind me, crawling, dragging, coughing up seawater. The skiff was already gone, either swallowed by the reef or drifting, half flooded back into the mist. None of us had our bags. No compass, no food, no knife. The hammer was probably at the bottom of the sea by now. Everything we'd packed was gone. We stood there, shivering, dripping, catching our breath. One by one, we looked at each other, counting. 5 of us. No one missing. No one hurt. At least not badly. Then we looked around. It took a few seconds before anyone spoke. "This is the same place," Sam said, slower this time. "It's the same beach." It almost looked like it. Same crooked tree leaning out over the water like it was eavesdropping. Same cluster of black rocks jutting up along the curve of the cove. The same soft slope leading into the tree line beyond. Even the shape of the shoreline felt familiar, like we'd looped through time instead of space. Jonah turned in a full circle, scanning the trees and the shore, and then the water again. "We didn't go anywhere," he said. His voice didn't sound angry. It sounded resigned. Eli was squinting at the ocean, his face tight. "We rowed across. We saw the island. We left." He didn't say it like he was arguing. He said it like he was trying to remind himself. No one responded. We started walking, slow at first, still trying to make sense of it. The beach looked nearly identical to our own, but it wasn't. The rocks were a little too sharp. The slope rose at a slightly different angle. The tree line was thinner. The color of the grass not quite right. Close enough to confuse us. Different enough to keep us on edge. There was a narrow path leading off the beach and into the woods, just wide enough for 2 of us to walk side by side. None of us remembered it being there before. The air was different as we climbed. Heavy and warm, like the weather had changed without warning. The trees swayed gently, but the grass up on the slope moved just a little too much. Jonah took the lead, Sam just behind him. Then Nathan, Eli, and me. We only made it about 30 or 40 paces up the trail when Nathan came to a stop. At first I thought he was just catching his breath. But then I noticed where he was looking, up the slope, toward the tall grass hugging the hillside. I followed his gaze and froze. She was so close. A very tall woman. She wasn't walking. wasn't moving at all, just standing in the grass like she'd been waiting for us to see her. No one spoke, no one moved. Even the wind kept going like she wasn't part of the world. The grass around her swayed. Her dress clung damply to her legs, but she didn't shift, didn't breathe. Her arms hung straight at her sides, too straight, too heavy, like she didn't know how they were supposed to work. She stood maybe 10 yards uphill, close enough to see the wrongness in how she carried herself. Her posture looked almost human, like a figure drawn from memory by someone who'd never actually seen one. That's when I realized what had hooked in my brain. Everything around her moved, but she didn't. Not even a twitch. "Do you see her?" Eli's voice was low, tight, like he wasn't sure if he was talking to us or himself. Of course we saw her. None of us had looked away. It felt like blinking might break some invisible barrier and make her come closer. Then she smiled. I didn't understand why it made my stomach twist at first. It wasn't exaggerated. It wasn't monstrous. It was subtle. Just wrong. Her mouth stretched into what should have been a smile. But the shape was off. The corners bent down instead of up, like someone had tried to mimic it from memory and gotten the geometry wrong. But the rest of her face, the parts that move when you smile, those were perfect. The cheeks lifted. The skin around her eyes crinkled. That mismatch was worse than anything else. Her eyes were kind. Genuinely kind. Not cold, not distant. She looked at us the way a mother looks at her children. There was warmth in her expression, and it made my skin crawl in a way I still can't explain. I can tell you this. If I'd known then what I know now about that woman, I would have turned and swum back out into the water. I would have taken my chances with the sharks. Gladly. She raised her arm. The motion was slow, unnatural, like her joints didn't belong to her. Her hand lifted until one long, stiff finger pointed straight at us. We didn't scream. We didn't run. We just started backing away, careful not to turn around, like we thought not facing her would make things worse. Sam bumped into Jonah, who muttered a curse under his breath. "Why is she pointing at us?" Sam asked, barely audible. Nobody answered. I kept watching her finger. Something felt off, the angle. It wasn't quite right. Eli squinted, stepping half a pace forward. "Wait," he murmured. "I don't think she's pointing at us." I looked from her finger to her face. He was right. Her eyes weren't on us. They were aimed just above our heads. Her arm cut across the air in a straight line, not to us, but over us. That's when I felt it, that slow pull in my gut, the primal feeling that something was behind me. We turned, all at once, and saw 5 people standing in the woods behind us, just beyond the path, half shaded by the trees. Not hidden, just waiting. They looked like us.